I think we've been really, really blessed along the way. But had I had started over, I would have been perfectly happy, continuing to work as a nurse practitioner and then just like slowly buying rentals and kind of adjusting expectations as far as like what we could achieve. But on the other side of the coin, like we've had the most incredible experiences. We've accumulated more wealth than I ever thought was possible.
In this episode, I talk with Stephanie Betters. Stephanie is a nurse practitioner turned real estate investor and serial entrepreneur that has founded 3 multi-million-dollar businesses. We discuss the journey that she took going from a very rewarding career in nursing to a real estate investor and business owner, the costs that come with starting your own business that nobody talks about, how solving problems in her business led to several other very lucrative business opportunities. And at the end, Stephanie shares something that is absolutely vital and you do not want to miss if you're married or if you value the relationships that you have with those around you. So I hope you enjoy. Now to the show. How you doing, Stephanie?
I'm great. How are you?
Good. I'm glad to have you on. It's been a long time since we've, I guess, been in the same room when we were in that mastermind together, but seems like you're doing really well.
Yeah, thanks. I am same for you. Look at you.
So you're a bit of a serial entrepreneur, but it didn't really, at least I don't believe you started out that way. Your professional career really started in the medical field, right?
Yeah. I'm a nurse practitioner. My background, my specialty is cardiothoracic surgery. So that's where I started and always really intended to stay, to be honest.
So how did you go from that, which it takes a lot of work to get there?
Yeah.
So how did you go from that to, I want to start a side business? Because I would imagine that not only does it take a lot of work, but also takes a lot of time, commitment. It's not like just a very simple skill set and job that you do. And then you
No.
wanted to go add a business onto that. So how did that play out?
Well, so it wasn't my idea. I will definitely give all the credit to my husband, Zach. Really, we got our first taste of business and real estate when we first graduated undergrad. Zach and I got married right after college. So I was 21, he was 24, like no money, ton of debt,
Mhm.
trying to figure out where to live. And, this was back in 2007. And 2007, right now we look back on that like, uh-oh.
Yeah.
um, we found a foreclosed house and he's like, this is what we do. Like we flip it. I saw this show on TV and this like always works out. You just got to buy a foreclosed house. So
Yeah.
we move into this thing, we renovated it ourselves. We sold it literally at the peak right before the crash. Thank God. And made a nice profit and then went to grad school. And while we were in grad school, he was like, I want to do that again. That was really good. And I was still recovering from the sheetrock PTSD of living in a flip. And I was like, okay, we can do it again, but not until like we're settled and we don't have to live in the property again. So, very long story short, we moved to North Carolina, had a couple more babies, started our careers. Zach's a physician assistant, and I'm a nurse practitioner. Got my dream job, and he kept talking to me about working the rest of our lives and building something alongside us, and how do we earn freedom, and the medical career it's crazy now that I'm out and I can look back on it, like nobody works like that. Like you're on call all the time. It's never like you hold your bladder for 17 hours. I mean, it's just insane work. And you don't really realize till you get out, you're like, wow, this is a complete hamster wheel. It's super rewarding and I love it very, very much. I don't want to minimize that, but like it's extremely hard work. And that's the only way you're earning money is by working like that. So he kind of got me when he was like, we can really do some wealth building by buying more real estate. And it was kind of good timing because I found myself, you know, 3 kids, 30 years old, dream job. I achieved everything I had thought I wanted to achieve, and I was 30. So I was like, what do I do now? Do I just maintain this? And maintaining that's difficult and exciting and fun. But I was kind of entering into a maintenance stage and I was like, I'm kind of too young for this. I don't know. What do I do? What do I do when I got the thing I dreamed for? So that kind of all hit me at the correct time. And I was like, okay, I think, we're relatively settled now. We have some equity in our house that we were living in. let's take a HELOC out and let's do this thing. Um, the idea initially was just to buy rentals, but we had found that, with the income we were making and the student loans we were paying back, like it was really we really weren't going to be able to buy more than one property a year. And even that's an achievement, of course, but the goal was essentially to be able to have rental properties that would support our children's college. And we're like, wait a minute, the math doesn't work out here. We're not going to be able to buy enough property in the next 10 years to be able to do that. So we have to buy more. How do we buy more? We got to flip. So we flipped houses. We decided we're gonna buy houses to flip instead of for rentals, so we can get more profit to buy rentals. And that led to wholesaling and, quite honestly, a complete 5-year detour, because instead of buying rental properties, we were building a business. And we had this kind of point in that journey where we had to decide, do we want to own a business, or and hire it out and own that thing that's producing revenue, or do we want to stop doing that and just buy rental properties? And we had gone so far and had success in building out the investment company for flips and rent and wholesales, that we're like, owning a business sounds pretty good too. I mean, that's basically like owning rentals, right? It's an asset that's producing income. Let's go that route. So we did, and it took about 5 years for that to spin off extra profit enough to start buying rentals. And along that way of building that company, we ran into other problems. And this is kind of where you're like, oh, serial entrepreneurship. Well, once you figure out how to run a business and solve problems, you find more.
Yep.
You kind of see it all over. So, ended up starting off a spin-off company for Facebook marketing for real estate, for real estate investors looking for motivated sellers. And also, probably the most successful spin-off was our CRM, that we built to help us run our business. Salesforce ended up noticing that and asked for partnership, and now Left Main was born in 2020, and that company has been extremely busy and exciting, and it allowed me to retire from medicine between those two ventures, mostly because I needed more time. There's only so much time that you can spend doing all these things and work at the hospital and running businesses. So I did all that, alongside working in medicine for a long time before I finally was able to let go of that part of my identity and take the choice of running the businesses. But yeah, solving one problem often leads to solving others.
Yeah, it's the scratch your own itch, and then that's how a lot of small businesses are born. Uh,
Yeah.
Do you feel like the identity of being a nurse practitioner, and was there a certain level of like mental pain letting that go, or at least not necessarily pain, but just really wrapping your head around, like, is that who you are? Are you someone bigger? Like that was a like a role, a certain season within your life. How did you approach letting that go and being comfortable to let that go so you can go pursue bigger and better, better goals?
I mean, I think pain is the correct word. Um, it was very painful to even consider leaving. I mean, I literally planned it for 2 years, because it was that difficult of a transition for me. Um, I think it really made me look at why I felt so closely tied to that identity and really try to distill down what that feeling was. Because it's more than just the school investment and the time and money investment. It's so much more than that. For me, it was just my way of helping people. Like, in the end, I really was so rewarded by having an answer for somebody and being able to fix somebody's, health problem. Surgery, by the way, is super rewarding because it's very short. You're like, oh, that hurts. I'm just gonna fix that. Oh, you dropped a lung. I'm gonna put a chest tube in there. Fix it. It's very cool in that sense because it's very like quick feedback loops. Where medicine, by the way, is very. I mean, real estate and business is very long feedback loops. But that really is what it boiled down to. It's like I love taking care of people. I love the complexity, and I love the just the dynamics with implementing care and choosing different medications and writing out those algorithms and working with other colleagues in kind of this complex environment, and just solving complex problems is so rewarding. So, but that's what it came down to. It's like, okay, I learned that. I was like, I like hard problems, unfortunately. It's just the reality. and I really like helping people. So really it took me a couple years to kind of peel that back and be like, okay, I don't have to just do that with medicine, you know? That's kind of like the quickest path that I was on at that point. Like, okay, that's very measurable. I can see that I'm helping people. I can see that I'm solving problems. But that's not the only application of that. So that's what helped me be able to separate my identity from being the nurse practitioner. And the other thing sounds kind of silly, but like the intro, like when you meet somebody new, it always comes up like, well, what do you do? I really had to kind of practice what it is I'm going to say.
Yeah, yeah,
Like, I don't know what I do. I do a lot of things, you know? So that was also really hard because whether we like it or not, we all kind of want a label. And that was convenient. Be like, oh, I'm a nurse practitioner in cardiac surgery. Now I say, I'm an investor. And people are like, oh, what does that mean? And that actually ends up having a lot of really fruitful conversations, by the way, raising private money, getting other customers and clients. It's interesting. But that's what I say now. And that helped me separate myself from my identity of just like how I quickly introduce myself.
yeah. I mean, like Jamie and I, we've talked about that a lot because I'm a born entrepreneur, and like she's a born teacher. Like
Yeah.
that's just who she is. And then when she quit her job and we were working real estate full time, we had employees. She was able to use those skill sets in training and more of a like an HR team building role. But also she was our project manager and all that. But when we shifted away from flipping, like that problem, it re-arose, if that's a word.
Yeah. Yeah.
It resurfaced, and it was that identity that she was struggling with, and she ended up going back teaching because we're very passive now. And I mean, we're building a different business, but we don't have the hands-on employees. We don't have 5, 7 different projects going all the time, and it was keeping her busy. So she came into that identity,
Yeah.
um, almost like in a little identity crisis in what she was doing. And it's definitely important to realize that about yourself and what brings you value, and making sure that you're pursuing that. So
Absolutely.
now, do you feel, because you started out wanting to buy rental properties,
Mhm.
ended up moving into flipping and wholesaling. We took that same path. You ended up building a business around it, which I think you kind of alluded to. It was a little bit of a detour on the wealth building side. Do you feel like, knowing what you know now, you probably could have gone in to the just straight into the wealth building, the building the actual rental portfolio, the passive income, and not going into the flipping or wholesaling business?
Such a good
Or like, and a lot of this is hindsight, but
yeah.
would that have been a better decision at the time, or do you feel like it definitely was the best decision because it's led to these other things?
Yeah. Oh, it's such a hard question to answer because I wouldn't trade where I'm at right now for anything. And the journey, although extremely difficult, I learned so much and had other opportunity that I never thought I would have. So if I could go back and restart, first of all, I would want to know like that it all turns out okay.
Yeah.
Because when you're going through it, you're like, this is hell. This
Yep.
is really hard. And you're so all in, like everything is all in. Your all your personal finances are intermingled and families on the road with you going to these things. So I would love to know, like for sure that would have been okay. But I probably wouldn't have taken such the detour with building the business. I think I probably would have just been slower in buying the rental properties and kind of slowly chugging away if I'm totally honest of like the emotional cost that it cost me something, like
Like, are you saying, instead of, and I don't know what your volume was, instead of flipping or wholesaling 10 a month, doing the 3 to 5 a month and holding half, that kind of thing, or
well, no, because I don't even think that that's really, and this is just my opinion from my experience, but I think it's actually harder to do 3 a month than it is to do 15 a month because there's that like middle piece that really sucks, where you don't have enough volume to support staff, but you
it's the
have it
death zone?
exactly, but you
Yeah.
have enough volume that like you'll die by
Yeah.
yourself. Like it's such a, you can't do it that part halfway. I think you either do like very low volume, few a year, or you go high volume
Yeah.
and then do the go through all the, the brain damage to get there.
Yeah.
So
For us, it
it's
was four, more than four. That was the, because we went through that. We went through the death zone, and I read it in a book. I forget which book it was.
yeah,
I think it was Simple Numbers. There's Profit First and Simple Numbers. I love both those
yeah,
books, but I think it was that. It talks about that death zone. You're small, but it's you. Then you scale, but the problem is if you don't scale big enough and you stay in that death zone, like you have a choice. You either run off the cliff and die, like your business dies, or you got to, scale back down and rebuild. So, like for us, it was that around four a month, because we never really scaled much more than seven a month. So we were in
yeah.
that death zone. We ended up just pulling back. Um, but I've seen others explode past that and do 10, 20, 30 deals a month, a lot more than that, and do very well.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you kind of have to you find yourself making that choice while you're growing. And I don't know, I think both work out. I mean, I'm sitting on the other side of it now. It worked out great. It worked out immeasurably more than I thought it would. And that's not I don't think that's from my own contribution or Zach. I mean, I think we've been really, really blessed along the way. But had I had started over, I would have been perfectly happy, continuing to work as a nurse practitioner and then just like slowly buying rentals and kind of adjusting expectations as far as like what we could achieve. But on the other side of the coin, like we've had the most incredible experiences. We've accumulated more wealth than I ever thought was possible. And being able to own different businesses that diversify that income, like looking at owning a business as far as passive income versus owning a property as passive income, that has been amazing. And so I recommend the journey for people who know how hard it is. I don't recommend the journey for people who think it's going to be easy. So, and in the beginning, you're doing it because you're like, I can do this. Like these other guys are doing it. I can totally do this too. So it's kind of conflicting advice. I think I wish I had understood how hard it would have been because I would have felt more normal during the process. That was the hardest part of just being so all in and just being like, "Why is this so hard? Is this supposed to be this hard?" The answer is yes. The answer is definitely yes. And, confronting with that choice that you make. Like I sacrificed time with my kids. I sacrificed sleep. I sacrificed my own health. Like I wouldn't do that again. But it doesn't mean I wouldn't do it once. If
Yeah,
that makes
yeah. Well,
sense.
the one thing that you don't have to worry about now is being 80 and then 40 to 60 years of your life having the what if question,
Right.
and you just not knowing, not even that it would work out, but you just never even tried. So you don't have to worry about that. But it's very, very true that not everyone, matter of fact, most people are not designed, equipped, emotionally, or even with skills to start a business, and they really don't need to. Just because it's all over the internet doesn't mean everyone needs to do that. I
Right.
love it.
Right.
Jamie and I, we're kind of the opposite. Like she's cool, like working within it, but she hates the ups and downs. Like I take it with stride. Sucks, but
Yeah.
I'll take it with a stride. But for those that do want to just keep their job, yeah, you could buy one rental a year. About one rental a year, do that for 10 years, you're a multimillionaire. Just gotta let your tenants pay them off. It's a pretty simple, boring process.
Right.
Um, but if you really want to go for it and build a business, that's a lot more cost, a lot more gain potentially.
Right.
It's definitely going to cost you more.
Yeah, and it's funny because I'm grateful that I did it, and I have zero regrets. The journey was amazing. The payoff was received. But now that I'm here, I definitely wouldn't go all in like that again. So that's what I mean. Like I would do it once, but I wouldn't do it again. I've learned enough now to know what I'm willing to invest in the process. And I think that's a huge gift because, my personality is to be the workhorse, right? Like if I believe in what the vision is of what we're trying to do, like I will do it. Like at my own expense. Like I will do freaking what it takes to get to the goal. And now that I've learned about what that really means and feels like, I feel that I can make better decisions of what I want to invest my time in. And I'm more aware of what my effort can result in when measured carefully. Like, so now I approach opportunity in a different way. I'm like, okay, what is this going to take? I understand what that's going to take. Am I willing to do what that takes to get the result that I want? And generally that effort is not like my entire life, right? It's like, okay, I can commit to doing this for 10 hours a week. And, I have these resources that I can put into play to get to X. Is that investment worth it? Is that like time and staff investment worth it? Yes or no? And so I feel like I'm a lot more measured in that instead of just like running headfirst off the cliff and building the parachute as I fall. That I
Yeah.
will never do again. So I'm grateful for the lessons in just business ownership and entrepreneurship and being a CEO and making those decisions. That life experience has been immeasurable, and that personal journey of knowing like what my effort can result in if I'm really effective. So yeah, I'm
And
happy that.
that's led you to solving a couple other problems. So social media came along the way, and I guess maybe let's start there, and then we'll go into software, which is completely different business. But
I know,
so
right?
how did social media? How'd you end up building that business?
Well, competitive world. We really formally started our investment company in like 2014, if we're going to be like really real on the dates. And we were just trying to find a competitive edge and trying not to spend a lot of money. And in 2015 or so, we started marketing on Facebook and had success. And funny, back 2015, not that long ago, everybody thought we were nuts, right? Like Facebook marketing doesn't work. Our
Yeah.
avatar, our homeowners, the 66-year-olds aren't on Facebook. It's not going to succeed. And I was like, it is. It's working. And we were able to reproduce our results really kind of accidentally because we had a local friend who's like, hey, they've got a list of homeowners in Pennsylvania. Do you think we can dispo some of these deals? Or I was like, sure, we'll try it. Maybe we'll just put our Facebook ads there and see if we can drum up some homeowner business and some buyers there. And lo and behold, we did. And then other people that were in our network and in our mastermind was like, hey, I see that you're doing that. Like, can we try it too? And we were able to reproduce it. And 2016, social media REI was born, and we started Facebook marketing for motivated sellers and have been doing so ever since.
Yeah, and the social media marketing game has changed dramatically over the
Oh yeah.
last like 2 or 3 years. So I I was late to that game. I mean, we were on social media, but it was more of an organic, which is fine. I like, but knowing what I know now, man, I wish I went like 100x on that. But but the advertising, like how easy and really like it was the Wild West,
It
which
was.
got pretty much all of those platforms in a lot of trouble. But if you were a savvy marketer, like you could just rake it in with very little cost.
It's crazy. And we got leads for a couple bucks. Now it's different. Now it's more expensive per lead, but still not crazy. Maybe you spend $60 a lead, $100 a lead, depending on your market. California, that's a wild west right now. You're going to spend a lot of money in California, but yeah, it was cool. And you know what? I got all jacked up, talking about it because that was innovation at its finest, right? Like we see like a potential here and like, let's do it. I see it. It's going to work. And being first to market is super exciting.
Yeah,
And
I really don't think people have the perspective from a marketing standpoint of that era, like the maybe 2012 to whenever the government started coming down on Facebook and Google for their
yeah,
like
it
their
was like
discrimination
2017,
targeting and all this.
2018. Yeah.
Yeah, so that era, like from a that had never existed before in marketing. It was just always so difficult to actually pinpoint and target the exact avatar that you wanted. So and now it's not that you can't do it. It's just it's a little bit more generic, and you gotta be more strategic about it.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's still ways to do it. I'm still successfully doing it. It's just, yeah, you have to be very strategic and you need further integration. Like you need to connect to offline event data, your CRM data. You need to have lists and get around lookalikes in a more close vested way, meaning like your data, right now to successfully market, you need to have data that you're putting into it. That way you don't have this long learning curve of trying to get leads in.
Mhm.
But that you can cultivate that now quickly if you have some data to contribute to the algorithm. And that's how we're successful with it now. We do a lot of offline event data directly from CRM. So if you came in as a homeowner lead, we would retarget you and people just like you on Facebook. And I know everything about you because you came into my CRM. So, where you live, what your phone number is, what your email is, and connect that. That's one of the best ways to do a lookalike besides buying a list. The trouble with buying a list is God only knows what email address you used for Facebook,
Yeah.
right? Or if that, if you're in the location where the home is. So it's still really, really good, but the offline event data is kind of the secret sauce.
Yeah. Yeah. So speaking of CRMs, you're involved in that now. CRMs are very complex, and I've seen people try to some successful software developers, even investors turn software developers, or software developers turn investors who try to scratch that itch. Eh, I've seen it, and I've seen it not work. You took a little different approach, which I think is a lot smarter, and that's more of the innovative approach to something that already exists and was already very successful.
Yeah.
So, what made you get into CRM development, and how'd you end up pulling that off?
So, I mean, again, from my own pain, while we were running Better Path Homes, our investment company, we kind of got to this point. This was in 2018, where we were spending a lot of money on marketing. And our CRM, we had done Podio, we had switched to another one that was kind of privately owned. Um, and it wasn't it wasn't giving me what I needed in the sense of like organization or data or like productivity with staff. I couldn't, I was paying VAs to scrape the CRM to put it in a spreadsheet and then look at the spreadsheet and have the spreadsheet be wrong or not make sense. Like we said,
Which
100.
defeats the purpose of the CRM. CRM is supposed to have that.
Exactly. So I mean, we were spending $100,000 a month, like, and we weren't taking a huge profit. Like we were barely paying ourselves, spending all this money on marketing and have no, like, where is this money going? What is working? I found myself not being able to answer like the really basic question of like, what happened to the money? Like what is working and what is not working? So, and then anybody who was back on the day, like these, Podio went down for like a week and
Whoa.
I like snapped. It was not pretty. I lost my mind. I really did. I was like, this is absolutely ridiculous. Like,
I never got
what?
on the Podio train. Like I know it was so popular because they had a free version and it was so light and cheap, but when I looked at it, it was like, this thing is ridiculously clunky. And I just approached it as like, look, am I going to be in business for a couple weeks or for 10 years plus? It was
Right.
like, if I'm going to be in business for a long time, like we just need to start with somewhere we can grow, a platform we can grow with. So
Interesting.
now you're in that situation where you're basically locked out of your data, or
Right.
it's useless.
It was the worst. It was literally the worst feeling ever. Because it really at that time, like you're just so all in. I didn't have that margin. I literally did not have that margin. And quite frankly, we would still feel the pain now if our system went down for a week. Like I don't think anyone can really afford that. But anyway,
Did you have
I just,
backups just in case?
no, of course not.
Mm. Who needs
No.
backups?
Right now we do. Learn that lesson. The experience can have a very expensive tuition.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, so there was other CRMs available, and really at that time there were these kind of like privately developed, single server type CRM systems that had really heavy marketing in our space, but really not a lot of operation like support or background or even longevity. So I was like, okay, I was just like, I'm done. What's the number one CRM in the world? I'm going and doing that. Like that's what I'm getting. And indisputably, it's Salesforce. I mean, $1 trillion worldwide company, number one, thousands of servers. I mean, right? It's like it's the number one. So I told Zach, I was like, listen, I'm doing this. I don't know how much this is going to cost. It's probably going to be like 20 or 30,000. I don't know, but we're doing it. And he's like, oh God, okay. So I went through this whole process with Salesforce because Salesforce out of the box is like industry agnostic. I mean,
Yeah, it's a blank
I,
sheet.
it's
I always say it's a canvas.
exactly.
And that was the one thing Podio had for you, is it was pre-designed for wholesaling, or I guess, or flipping. So I think that was the one thing it really had for it. But the greatest thing about Salesforce, is, and also, those type of high level CRMs, that they do everything and anything you want. The
Right.
problem is you have to tell it to do that. But the engine behind it is absolutely incredible.
Right, the engine is indisputable, and it's extremely reliable. So that's why I was like, "Okay, I'm just gonna do that." And I went through this very long process with Salesforce because again, they're industry agnostic. They have no clue. First of all, real estate, they don't know anything about real estate. The salespeople at Salesforce and the developers, they knew very, very little about our use case. So that was a little bit daunting. And I went through, 7 1-hour meetings with people, like through the discovery and what we need and da da da. And we got to the end and, to the quote delivery, there's like 7 people on this call. And I'm like, okay, I'm like, I've spent a lot of time on this. Like, hopefully this is a solution now, right? And they quote me $100,000 and a 6-month build until I can log into the system.
Jeez.
And I was like,
Which that's really just the starting point
right, I'm
for
just
them.
logging in. And then they're like, and then we'll do phase 2. And I was like, what? I mean, again, I would now I wish I had that Zoom recording. It probably lives somewhere. If I ever run for office, that is definitely gonna like surface this video because I lost it on this call. I was just like, "What do you mean? What?" I was flabbergasted. I'm like, "This is insane. How can anybody afford this? Like, I went through all this time, and you guys drop a 6-month bomb on me, 100K, and that's what I'm gonna end up spending $1 million on this thing. Oh my god!" Anyway, I lost it, and I was like, at the end, I'm like, "I'm just gonna do it myself. I'm just gonna code it myself." And then those poor souls, they laughed at me. And I was like, okay, now I'm really going to do it. So I ended that call. I was like, screw this. I spent the next 3 months like straight, taught myself how to code on the platform, taught myself the entire platform, built it, and went live at Better Path in about 3 months. And I was like, okay, we did it. This is cool. This is amazing. The thing was singing. My staff loved it. I could see my data. I was like, yes. And then Salesforce, about a month or so after we went live, they followed up with me and they're like, "Hey, did you give up? How you doing?" And I was like, "Oh, I mean, I built it. It's done. And, take me off your drip sequence. Like, I'm cool now. I don't need anything." And my AE, Allie, was like, "Really? Can I see it?" I was like, "Fine. I'll show you in the Zoom call if you just like, and then if you like, then you'll leave me alone." So I showed her and she was like, "Oh my God, like this is something. Do you know that this is something?" And I was like, "I don't know what that means." She's like, "Do you think anyone else in the industry would want this?" And I was like, "Maybe, yeah. I mean, we really need a good, better tool." And she's like, "I'm going to introduce you to our partner team." So I mean, just kind of like this amazing moment of just like a lane opening up that I didn't even understand or realize was there. Again, I call these little things like little God moments because I would never have even dreamt of this. So anyway, I got introduced to the partner team. They're Salesforce and very serious and they're like, "Do you think there's a market for this?" And I said, "Absolutely." And we started talking about pricing. I was like, "Listen, I'll tell you exactly why like Salesforce sucks at real estate. And if you are interested in not sucking at real estate, I'll be interested in working with you." It's like it's too expensive. There's too much development time. Like you've completely outpriced an entire market. And if you want to do something together, like it's got to be affordable. So like I'm like I want licenses at $50. The standard license is $150 a user. I mean, just like these companies can't afford it, let
Yeah,
alone the development
especially you got a
costs. So
team 3 to
exactly,
5. Yeah.
right, right. So I was like, "This is what I want," and they're like, and it's funny because I had nothing to lose. Like I really didn't. I'm like, whatever. If you want this, great. If not, I'm gonna go run my company and be just fine. And they were like, "Okay, let's do it." And we signed the deal. And in 2020, it went through this big security process. They tried to break what I did, and it passed, and it was great. And we went live in 2020, and we had this little grassroots development. And then, really the end of 2020, it just kind of went viral. And we've brought more real estate professionals to the platform on Salesforce in the last two and a half, we'll call it 2.5, 3 years, than Salesforce has in 25 years.
That's incredible.
It's crazy. It's crazy awesome. I mean, the timing it was really incredible. In 2020, when this launched, I was actually stepping out of Better Path. I was a COO, and we had just hired somebody to take my role. And I was just going to be, I was going to work in medicine and, kind of consult in our own company and be in the owner's box. And then Left Main, I was like, okay, I can do Left Main while like now I have time, I'll do it. And then Left Main took off, and now I run that business full time as a CEO and have more team members there than Better Path has. And it's kind of been its own like tree.
Hmm.
Where originally I thought it was going to be a branch, it became its own tree.
Yeah.
And we've developed it, way beyond what the initial launch was. And of course, Better Path Homes has been, positively affected by that. And then the rest of the real estate professionals that have come on. It's been a wild ride. It's been amazing. Very, very challenging, because tech moves blazing fast. I was not prepared for how quickly tech can grow. But it's been incredible. I love being on the forefront of innovation, and I love bringing a tool to us in our industry because we are classically so behind the times. I can't tell you how many people are using, spreadsheets and paper.
Real
I'm like,
estate
what?
is so archaic. Like the
I
systems,
know.
like I feel like
I
they've done a lot of catching up over the last couple of years, and
Yeah.
various tech companies and the investing and brokerage space, but it's still very archaic. Because I had the same problem. Like I had the blank slate, and I'm like, but I didn't have a business at that point, or very little. I think we were probably doing a couple deals a year.
Yeah.
And so I just paid someone. When I moved from Excel to a CRM, there was this service, this lady, some wholesaler out of like Arizona or whatever, and I think it was like $500 to get me set up. And then I've probably put 1,000, maybe 2,000 hours in edits over the last 10 years.
Right.
Further customizing that. And I've always thought it was like, because right now it's very clunky, but it works for what I do. And I've always thought about, hey, should I like, what you did? And I don't, I'll never do that. But I think my pain point was it's not where yours was. Now, if I had to
Yeah.
go rebuild it, like I can only imagine what that looks like. So that's awesome.
Yeah. So here I find myself serial entrepreneurship, and I love it. And I'm solving complex problems and helping people, and that's kind of how I deal with my identity stuff and get that reward.
Yeah, full circle. Are you still doing any volunteer work or any W-2 work with nursing?
No, so what we up until COVID, I was doing mission work in Honduras, but it got really disturbed by COVID. So back this year we're gonna do the mission trip again. So I very much want to continue volunteer and mission work. But
Awesome.
no, I'm not working full time anymore at all. I'm totally off the grid,
Off the
just
grid.
doing volunteer stuff and getting pictures of rashes from my friends and family.
Yeah, yeah.
What's this in my toenail? Like,
We have my wife's one of our best friends is a ophthalmologist, and another one is a pharmacist. So like
yeah.
at least within those realms, like she's got a pretty good set of at least initial opinions on what we should do. Like, should we go to the hospital or not?
Exactly. Yeah. Oh, I get all kinds of fun pictures and questions, and I love it. I love it. If you're listening to this and you've sent me a rash picture, just give me a warning first, in case my kid
Yeah, yeah.
see like a butt cheek with a rash. Yeah.
Oh, nice. All right. Closing out, a couple questions I ask everyone that comes on. So, if you could give advice to your 20-year-old self, what would that be?
You have no idea what you're capable of.
Awesome.
Do it. Jump.
Do it. Jump. What book or books have greatly influenced your life?
So besides the Bible, which is just, of course, the default answer, Jim Collins, Good to Great, changed my life. The way I look at businesses and decision making and confronting harsh facts and taking action. Um, yeah, Good to Great, incredible book.
It's actually one I've heard a lot that I haven't read.
Oh, you'd love
Yeah,
it. You'd love it.
I think it's on my list. I'll cue that up next.
Yeah.
In the last 5 years, what new belief, behavior, or habit has most improved your life?
Oh, let me think about that. I think probably intentional time talking to my husband. And that seems kind of funny, but like life
No,
is
I
really,
get that, but go ahead.
yeah, life is really fast. And, I kind of began to realize like we didn't like look at each other today. Like I don't know, like you get to the end of the day and like you're like you collapse in bed, right? But I realized like we really didn't connect, and we're working from home, and like life is just crazy. So we started just being really intentional, like have a cup of coffee with each other at the breakfast table, and that has been the best thing I think I've ever done because I'm like I really like you, like you're cool, and I want to talk to you, and I want to share this life together. And if we're not talking, how can we? And there's a part of me that like still fights that because there's so much to do all the
Mhm.
time, and like I just kind of want to dive into the day. But just sitting there and like just having a cup of coffee together, I think makes me feel like I'm living the life I want to live.
Love it. A little side question. I usually don't do this in this section, but I think that's important because extrapolated, not addressing that over 5, 10 years. I mean, that's what leads to divorce.
Right.
So, do you feel both of you being, in your own working in the business as opposed to a traditional, if you both had W-2 jobs where things are a bit more static, maybe not nursing, but normal jobs. Do you think that adds an extra layer uh, of, or it's a little bit more difficult to do that?
I think marriage and life is hard, and requires intention no matter what you do. But I do think that being entrepreneurs and being business owners, and both of us pushing a big rock up a hill adds a level of like emotional stress that I think is specific for this like time. Like being a business owner, I think is a very specific emotional stress, that makes relationships hard.
Yeah, because it's an infant. I mean, like if you've had kids, the first 6 months are very, very stressful.
Yeah.
That's what a baby is. I mean, it's not a person, but it comes with its own layers of stress.
Right, exactly. And you're so it's your baby. Like you have to take care of it, and then yet you also have to do things that are good for your long-term life, like having a successful marriage or a meaningful relationship with your other children, right? So yeah, I think it's just an extra layer of all in that it's hard to even peel back your brain to stop thinking about this rock you're pushing up the hill and being present. Um, that is a little bit of a different experience. And I mean, coming from a W-2 job that was extremely stressful. I mean, literally death and dying and critical illness was easier for me than doing this and running a business and starting a business. Like I will go to work at the hospital and deal with heart surgery and heart surgery patients post-op, which is a whole roller coaster. And that was a break. I was like, this is great. Science is great. I can predict some stuff, whereas business was, I mean, it was just ridiculous, right? So I do think there's an extra layer and makes marriage a little bit more challenging.
How can people reach out to you?
You can email me, Stephanie at leftmainrei.com, or you can find me on social. I'm on LinkedIn and Facebook and Instagram, Stephanie Betters, or Steph Betters is my Instagram handle.
Love it. I think your call sign on there. It's you eat problems for breakfast, right, or something.
Right. I eat problems for breakfast. That's what I do.
Love it, love it,
But I have had some times where they've made me a little chubby, too many problems for breakfast, but getting better.
love it. Well, thank you for coming on. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Chris.